She started developing full-blown anxiety, panic attacks, wasn't eating, lost weight, not sleeping. I don't think that parents really realize the impact of what bullying does to you.
At the end of the day, I don't care if my child has straight A's or B's or whatever. All I want is my child to be happy, to be healthy. Isn't that what matters the most?
Depression hits, and they don't love themselves. Anyone who has substantial negative thoughts does not love themselves because the voices in their head tells them why they're not good enough. And then the school system treats every single child as if they are a victim. So anything that they do that is wrong or even hurts other people, there's no consequences because it's always, oh, well, who knows what they have going on at home. And while I agree, we don't know what's going on at home and they could be coming from trauma, that's not an excuse to then push the trauma onto all the other kids in the school and teach the good behaved kids that, hey, you can act out and you can hurt other people and then you're gonna get to go play basketball in the gym.
Schools are destroying teen mental health. Depression and anxiety among students is through the roof. Many teens feel lonely and misunderstood, resorting to AI as companions. And on top of the lack of sleep, stress, and burnout, many dread the thought of going to school daily. But what is the solution to this? That's where homeschooling enters the conversation. And many parents are starting to consider it if it means they get to protect their child's mental health. But is homeschooling better for teen mental health than public school? Stick to the end to find out, and let's get straight into it. First, let's talk about depression and anxiety. Nowadays, it's super common among students. Anytime they enter a school building or even think about school in general, it's always followed with a feeling of misery. Not just because they hate the lessons and they're bored, but mostly because it just feels pointless. They have to sit in front of a teacher for 6 hours a day and be told things that they aren't actually going to apply later on. Yes, algebra and history are important, but what about teaching subjects that are in direct correlation to what they want to pursue later on? Many teens see the disconnect, and that's why they're miserable about going to school. A lot of it is not only just boring to them, but it's also repetitive. They're stuck in a routine that they hate, learning things that they're not only uninterested about, but that don't really help them later on either. We all know that feeling when you have to get up and head to school in the morning. And some people might argue, well, isn't this just real life? You're gonna have to do things you don't want to do, which is true. And building that mental resilience is important. But if they're going to work hard and have to discipline themselves, could it at least be in a field that they'll want to pursue later on? Many students feel unmotivated to go to school, not just because it's boring and repetitive, but because they don't see the point in it at the end of the day. Not only that, there's also social pressure around you, which is where the anxiety comes from. Many students feel constantly watched, compared, evaluated. And for a teen brain, that social ranking pressure can lead to anxiety. And when I was in public school, it's not like I hated the subjects itself, but I didn't get the point of doing any of it. I just felt like, okay, this is something I have to do to go to college, get a job, and better my life. And I know it's not good to just rely on motivation. But if students don't feel like public school is leading them to their purpose, what they truly want to achieve in life, then they're going to feel disconnected no matter what you tell them. But in homeschooling, it can be taught way better. When I came out of public school and started my first homeschooling year, my parents gave me the room to pursue the purpose that I wanted to achieve, which was being a writer. And yes, the process of writing a book is hard, through the drafts, the editors, the delays. But I felt motivated each day, even on the bad ones, because I was actually doing something hard in the pursuit of my purpose. So I had this sense of fulfillment within me, which I didn't have in public school. So it's not like I hated public school necessarily. I want that point to be clear. But I felt more fulfilled in homeschool because I got to pursue the purpose that I wanted for myself. And I feel like if more students had access to this, depression and anxiety would decline. And I feel like homeschooling is a great avenue to allow this to happen. And since we're on the topic of stress and burnout, you know what also causes burnout? Lack of sleep. Sleep is actually a mental health issue, and many teens around the world are chronically sleep deprived. There's always someone taking a nap during class, and everyone just seems to be so tired and drained of life. But do you want to know something I found out? Teen brains are naturally wired to sleep later, often after 11 p.m. And the healthiest sleep time for teens is 8 to 10 hours per night. So let's just average this to 9 hours. From 11 p.m. when they feel tired to 8 a.m. when school starts, that's already 9 hours. But we're not factoring things like having to get ready for school, which could mean you might wake up at 6 or 7 o'clock, depending on how far your school is and whether you take the bus or not. Also, depending on the workload the teen has, they don't just go to bed at 11 p.m. Some could stay up till 12, finishing schoolwork, getting back from their jobs, etc. Some school times are actually earlier. So we're not just talking about 9 hours anymore. We're talking about 5 to 7 hours of sleep each night, with all factors considered. And when you're sleep deprived, everything gets worse. Anxiety anxiety spikes, mood drops, and the motivation to do work, to learn, to get educated disappears. But homeschool teens don't have to worry about this. Homeschool students average 1 to 2 more hours of sleep per night than their public school peers because the parent sets the schedule. Instead of waking up so early, homeschoolers have more room to follow their circadian rhythms. They don't have to get ready for school because school is at home, and the parent gets to set the school time in accordance to how much sleep they're supposed to get. Now, I have to be honest with you. I don't get the best sleep. I could either wake up at 6 to go to the gym or 7 o'clock on non-gym days, and I fall asleep at around 12 a.m. I was getting better sleep before in my first homeschooling years, but since I have a little bit more responsibilities, I found that it's harder to get enough sleep per night. And that's something I'm working on for myself. Maybe I don't have to go to the gym at 6. Maybe it could be 7, or maybe later on in the day. No matter what it is, I have to figure out ways to get sleep better because it actually affects productivity. And since homeschool kids get more sleep, they can be more productive throughout the day. You'll find that they can get their work done sooner, which means they don't have to work as late. Homeschool is better for sleep because both the parent and the teen can design a schedule that can allow the teen to get their work done, as well as setting a wake-up time that gets in their sleep hours. Okay, but what about loneliness? At least public schoolers are around other people. Homeschoolers just stay at home and they don't have any friends. This is the most common argument for homeschooling over public school. People assume that public school prevents loneliness because you're around people all day. But being surrounded by other people doesn't always equal socialization. We all know those couple of kids that don't really talk with the rest of the class. We barely know them and they seem to keep to themselves and they're quiet. I was one of these students in my first semester of middle school, and I didn't really feel like I connected with the people in my class, at least in the first year. I moved from New York to Georgia, and everyone who knew each other were from the same school before. I still had a good social life, but I didn't have that strong connection, if you would. And if you feel like the people around you don't really understand you on a deeper level, then you can still be lonely even if you're surrounded by 30 kids a day. 20 to 30% of teens experience significant loneliness on a day-to-day basis. Most of the time they're in school surrounded by people, yet they still feel lonely. It's just that they don't have a choice when it comes to who to talk to. And that's where homeschooling can come in. Homeschoolers actually get to go out, and the parent and teen gets to choose which community of people they would like to be around. And if that community of people is something that the teen likes, 9 times out of 10, you won't feel lonely in those environments. I have felt more lonely in public school than I have in homeschool. And I don't even go to that many clubs, to be honest. I get to choose which community of people I want to be around, instead of just being subjected to the random public school lottery system. Not to compare students to the lottery, but you get what I mean. Being able to choose your community will help teens feel less lonely. And this is easier to do in homeschooling. Now, I want to be fair. Homeschooling isn't perfect. If you keep your kid at home with no outside interaction, no communities, no activities, then of course it's going to be a problem. So as a homeschooler, you'll have to be proactive about finding your socialization group. Whether it's co-ops, clubs, homeschool programs, you have to make sure you're around people intentionally. Because homeschooling as the default can be isolating. Parental pressure can also worsen mental health, especially if you have helicopter parents that are constantly over you 24/7. Yes, they do want what's best for their child, but they don't allow some level of freedom, which can feel mentally suffocating to the teen. I've heard homeschool stories about that as well. The parents not giving them the space to do what they want. Homeschooling should be overlooked, yes, but it shouldn't trap the child. So the point is, homeschooling can be done poorly and worsen mental health if you do it poorly. We can't just keep kids in a school system that's clearly failing them just because the alternative requires more effort. A parent that is intentional about their kid's success will do the work that is necessary to support their child in their future and in their mental health. You see on the news that there's many people who make it in life, but later on, what holds them back? The thoughts in their mind, their emotional intelligence, the way they perceive the world. Some of them fall to drugs, alcohol, many different types of addictions, and they ruin their lives, despite their fame and financial success. I feel like mental health isn't talked about as much. Whatever thoughts you have in your mind will affect what actions you do next. So if we neglect this completely, especially for teens at a younger age, we're setting them up to ruin their lives, and money won't fix that. But I still have hope. Whether you're homeschooling or even in public school, we can still make changes to improve mental health. I'm lucky enough to have parents who are willing to talk to me every day to make sure I'm doing well, especially when I was dealing with social anxiety. Teens want to feel understood. They want to be heard, not just constantly lectured at. Just one conversation can do so much. Make the effort of going outside, going to the park as a family. My family and I used to do this a lot during COVID, and I would try try it one of these days. Just being in nature and outside of the house actually has therapeutic effects. Maybe I should do more research on it because I don't know how it works, but I just feel more at ease when I go to the park with my family. The bottom line is parents have to step in where schools can't. We don't have to wait for a diagnosis or an outburst to do anything. We can check in with our teens daily. Put them in communities of people where they'll feel motivated, not drained. And make sure to keep your connection strong. We have to stop sweeping mental health under the rug, and we have to speak up about it more. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.